Welcome to the Cashflow Ninja, the podcast sharing how to create and grow income streams and manage, multiply, and protect your wealth in the new economy. Are you tired of trading your time for money? Do you desire freedom today instead of retirement in 10, 20, or 30 years? I'm MC Laubscher, and this is the Cashflow Ninja. This is Cashflow Ninja. I'm MC Laubscher. Thank you so much for spending your most valuable resource, your time with me again. Joining me from Singapore is legendary investor, returning guest on the show, Mr. Jim Rogers. Mr. Jim Rogers is an author of several books that have really influenced my life. One of my favorite ones right here, I would highly recommend this one, A Gift to My Children, A Father's Lessons for Life and Investing. This was actually the book behind one of my favorite questions to ask guests on the show because it's all about principles and values. So I would highly recommend that. Mr. Rogers, welcome back to the show. Always great to speak with you.
I'm delighted to see you, MC. Just speaking of that book, there's a better version, but it's only in Chinese. For whatever reason, it hasn't been published in English yet. So much longer, much more complete, etc. So if you ever learn to read Chinese, and I cannot, but if you can, it's a much better version of that book.
Maybe, one of the things I've got two young children, maybe they'll be able to read it someday, just as your daughters do, right?
Yeah, my children are very, very, very good at Mandarin. The Chinese use them on TV every once in a while because they're so shocked at how good the Mandarin is. I repeat, I speak no Mandarin. It's not my fault. I wish I could take credit, but I cannot.
Yeah, super stuff. They were featured on the Chinese channel as you were just saying, singing a song too recently. Really, really impressive stuff. And what a life! And you saw this coming. There was another book that I grabbed here, which I enjoyed years ago, Bull in China. So sticking to, eating your own cooking, as I say, you're now in Singapore and that part of the world. And that's worked out pretty well because there's a lot of stuff that's been happening there. Quite a number of stuff happening recently in the world. The health crisis that's going on, the response to it. Most Western countries still locked up. Any comments on that? Any comments on the response, and any comments on when you think that the global economy, especially the Western economies, are going to start rolling again?
Well, MC, I'm an American, so I hate saying what I'm about to say, but it's embarrassing. We in the U.S. had 2 or 3 months' notice that the virus was out there and it was spreading. And yet we did did very little about it. You asked how legs
No, I was saying one of the things that I've just noticed too, and this is one of the things from the lessons that I learned from all of your books too, is not just looking at what is in the news, but what is it actually telling you. A lot about this, especially the media here has been very, very much just full of fear and spreading a lot of fear. I mean, this is, for a lot of these companies, it was almost like a lifeline because I think they were waiting for something to fill the gap of the next election cycle. What has been the reaction around the world? You shared that story, which is very, very interesting. What is your overall take on just how the media presented this and covered a lot of this?
Well, the next step is, of course, if you ask me, the media and politicians all over the world have overreacted. We've been having the flu and viruses for hundreds of years. In 2009 in the U.S., we had the H1N1 virus. Well, we didn't close McDonald's. Airlines Delta didn't stop flying. I mean, the world moved ahead and coped with it and adjusted. This seems much, much, much more out of control, the media reaction, the political reaction to the reality. Yes, people have died, and yes, it's horrible. But the statistics are not more people are dying than normally die at this time of year, and most of the people who are old. Well, I'm old, so I'd be one who might die, but I might die anyway. So if you ask me, this has been a hysterical overreaction. I'm not sure why it got a little bit out of control. previous, we had the Spanish flu. It started in the U.S. in 1918. We didn't have this crazy, wild overreaction. Yes, it was horrible. We've had many epidemics, but the world goes on and the world adjusts. For this reason, some reason, the press got out of control this time.
Absolutely. And the effects of this already is massive amounts of unemployment. Businesses failing left, right, and center. Small businesses just being devastated. A lot of bankruptcies, a lot of bailouts. There was just a story that just broke that there's going to be more bailouts now for big companies, which we can expect. How do you see a lot of this playing out? Because it's quite chaotic, and the longer this lasts, the more chaotic it's going to become, right?
MC, I can tell you're a little bit young. I know you have a couple of kids. I have a couple of kids. I will tell you what is happening is bad for old people. It is really bad for young people. The U.S. was the largest debtor nation in the world 6 months ago. They have added trillions. That's trillions with a T, MC, to the debt in the U.S., and they're not stopping yet. They're trying to find more trillions to add. Boy, I know there's an election in November in the U.S., and I know they all want to get reelected. But what about young people? What about you? What about me? What about our kids? This is leaving a crippling blow to the future for the U.S. We're speaking about the U.S., but European country, Japan is just as bad, if not worse. But this is going, in 1920, the U.K. was the richest, most powerful country in the world. There was no number two. But then they started doing things like what the U.S. is doing now. Now they're not even in the top 20. I mean, they're still there. People are still having a good time. But the comparison to the way they lived 100 years ago and the way they live now, and the importance of the country and the economy it's a nightmare. And I'm afraid that's what young people in America have to look forward to now. Yeah. Again, I don't like saying any of this, MC, but one has to deal with facts or one is going to suffer.
Absolutely. We're all about clarity and seeing what's happening instead of just hiding with your head in the sand and saying, I'm positive, this is going to be okay. I don't care how positive you are when you're sitting on a train track. The train's going to run you over. Better get off that train track.
I wish it were that easy. Boy, that would be wonderful if it were that easy. That's what they say in Washington. Unfortunately, most of us live in the real world. We don't live in Washington, D.C.
Yeah, and I think a lot of folks are realizing, too, if they haven't before, that they really have to take care of themselves. No one is coming to save you. No one's coming to help, especially, individuals on the ground. You're going to have to take responsibility and accountability, and you're going to have to take matters into your own hands is definitely something that I've already seen. Doesn't really matter with all these other programs that they have on the shelf trying to roll out. It's up to the individual, right?
Well, so far, I haven't found a free lunch. Not a free lunch that lasts anyway. Sure, there's a free lunch every once in a while, especially when there's an election coming around. But after the election, somehow or another, the free lunch disappears, and I'm on my own.
Yeah. So there's a lot of industries just being decimated. Low-hanging fruit, the airlines, hotels, resorts, and so forth. And we're just seeing now everything that's tied to traveling. I believe it was it Hertz that was now looking at bankruptcy options? That was in today's news. So there's a lot of different industries under severe pressure and decimated. What are some of these industries that you're looking at and seeing that are getting clobbered that will come back in this new economy? Because there's some that might disappear completely and some might come back.
Well, companies might disappear. Okay. Travel is not going to disappear, MC. Yeah. We're not going to go back to taking the bus. We're not going to go back to taking a boat to Europe or Asia or something. Yep. I assure you, we're going to continue to fly. We might fly on different airlines or different whatever, but somebody's going to take us somewhere. We're going to stay in hotels. We're not going to sleep in the park. We're going to eat in restaurants. Et cetera, et cetera. So, yeah, there are opportunities out there, and some places better than others. The U.S. stock market is not that far off its all-time high. There are other places, Russia, Japan, China, that have been obliterated more, and maybe better opportunities. I mean, everybody has to decide for themselves. Right now, as I look around the world, and I assure you I do it every day, I'm looking at all asset classes in all countries, and the commodities seem to be the cheapest asset class in the world right now. Certainly not government bonds. Government bonds are a bubble, if anything. An option might be, an approach might be, and I'm not recommending this because I'm not doing it myself yet, might be to short government bonds and go long agriculture. For instance, agriculture has been obliterated, government bonds in a bubble. So anyways, I look at assets, I see government bonds are the most overpriced in the world, and agriculture is probably the cheapest in the world right now.
Yeah, that's a great segue, because one of my questions was to get into commodities, because if you're having the opportunity to have a conversation with you, we definitely want to get into that. Some comments on oil. We've seen a lot happening there. What is the impact for producers of oil and then consumers? Because there's some big producing countries of oil, and then some very, very big consumers of it.
Good insight. Is there two ways? Often people just remember, oh my gosh, Saudi Arabia and the producers are getting killed. Yes, but this is wonderful for China, Japan, Germany. I mean, this is fabulous for some countries. They wake up every day and can't believe how much their cost of living has gone down because of the price of oil. So yes, the Saudis are having and the Saudis are going to have real problems because they went nuts in the past 30 years, spending money and running up obligations. Now they're suffering. But no, this is great for some people. It's horrendous for other people. Oil, in my view, is making a complicated bottom. We're going to look back someday and see that in 2018, 19, 20, 21, 22, oil made its bottom. You know how bottoms look. They go sideways, up and down, up and down, up and down. Little spike here, a little spike there. And that's what's happening with oil prices. MC, the known reserves of oil continue to decline, except for fracking. Well, the fracking bubble has burst. I mean, fracking's still there, but now people realize, oh, you have to make money. Oh, you have to pay your bills. This is not a miracle after all. So that bubble burst, but there's still going to be oil coming. But the known reserves continue to decline all over the world.
Very, very interesting. Agriculture. I want to talk about that a little bit too, because you said that was one of the things that you've seen really, really decimated, and something we're definitely looking at. What do you see as far as how this all plays out? Because supply chains have definitely been disrupted. We see in the United States now there's meat plants that closed. Some of them are now forced to stay open by the president. And then there's other supply chains that have been heavily disrupted. We see images of farmers destroying crops and so forth that could, all in all lead to some food shortages. What are some of your views on that, and what do you see there?
Well, MC, you're exactly right. First of all, agriculture has been a problem for a long time. If you go back to the 60s, many farmers were already starting to have problems. Debts are built up. If you look at agriculture prices, I have a commodity, an agricultural index, the Rogers Index, actually trades on the New York Stock Exchange, but it's down below where it was 20 years ago. I mean, this is absurd what's happened. Not absurd, but a fact of what's happened with agricultural prices, and it continues to get worse. The average age of farmers in America is 58. The average age in Japan is 66. The highest rate of suicide in the UK is in agriculture. Millions of Indian farmers commit suicide. I mean, MC, in the U.S., more people study public relations than study agriculture. Now, something's going to change, or we're going to stop wearing clothes. We're going to stop eating food. The price of sugar is down something like 75 or 80%. That's not a typo. 80% from its all-time high. Now, that cannot continue. So if I were looking around the world, and I do every day, as I say, agriculture seems to be one of the cheapest assets around. Government bonds are one of the most expensive assets around.
Yeah.
So if you don't like doing your podcast, which people love, but if you don't like it, you might learn how to drive a tractor.
Yep.
Or what you could do is you could start an agricultural podcast.
Exactly. Talk a little bit about that. The other commodities, gold, silver, some of your thoughts on that right now. We've seen some moves this year already. What do you see in the gold and the silver markets currently?
Well, I stopped buying gold around 2010 because it was shooting straight up. But then I started again last summer of 2019. See, I have a little gold right here.
Oh, fantastic.
I have silver. Silver's cheaper.
Yep.
On a historic basis, silver is certainly much cheaper, so I bought more this week.
MC Laubscher, the creator of the Cashflow Ninja and Cashflow Coach at Producers Wealth, where we help our clients integrate infinite banking with their business and investments. To learn how you can create your own banking system to turbocharge your investments and business in 30 days or less, go to yourownbankingsystem.com. That's yourownbankingsystem.com.
I forget where I am, the time zones. I'm buying gold and silver again. Throughout history, when you have people lose confidence in governments or money, they buy gold and silver. The politicians and the academics say, no, don't buy gold. It's obsolete. Let them say it, MC. All of us peasants know that when things are bad, we want to own some gold. So I'm a peasant like all the rest of them. I'm buying gold and silver. Now, you may have, and you often do have, when things collapse, the price of gold goes down. 2008, gold went down with everything else. But it was a great time to buy because then it skyrocketed again and made all-time highs. So my answer to your question is buy gold and silver. But MC, if you don't know what gold is or how to buy it, please don't listen to some guy you see on a podcast. Wait until you know something about what you're doing and then act.
Yep.
That's the most important message for everybody. Only invest in what you yourself know a lot about. Don't listen to some guy on the internet.
And it ties into also studying money and the history of money and what's been money, which is just fascinating because it's the medium of exchange. It's how we trade with one another, from seashells to tally sticks to gold and silver coins. It's been around for centuries, and now we've got fiat currencies, and looking at what's going on, it's just being printed left, right, center. Whichever way you want to take it, it's coming at you, euros, dollars, and so forth. What are you seeing happening to currencies, staying on the money topic, to the US dollar, the euro, the yuan?
Well, it is remarkable because 30 years ago, if you had said this was going to happen, people would have left the room. They wouldn't have talked to you anymore because they thought you were nuts. Even 20 years ago, what is happening? I'll use the U.S. I'll use Japan first to be a little more neutral. The head of the central bank in Japan goes to work every day, cranks up the printing presses, prints as fast as he can, buys bonds, stocks, ETFs. He now has permission to buy stocks. It's just astonishing. He has said, we will print unlimited, that's his word, not mine, unlimited amounts of money. This is total insanity. Japan is a fabulous country, but it's, the population has been declining for 10 years. The debt skyrockets every day, and they're printing all this money. You go to the U.S., we are the largest debtor nation in the history of the world. And MC, we're adding debt as fast as we can. I talked about young people before. Even old people should be. This has never happened in recorded history. Now, what may happen, and we're talking about gold and silver, what may well happen, there's a theory around called modern monetary theory,
right,
or MMT.
Yep.
It really means more money quick, more money now,
Right.
more money today. But in times of crisis, nutty theories get some credence. You know, Mr. Marx had a nutty theory. He got credence. Many people tried it for a long time, and we now know Karl Marx was wrong, but it didn't mean that people didn't try it for a long time. That's what's happening with modern monetary, and may well be. The English are already doing it. The English are saying, we'll just print. It's an emergency, we're just going to print money. So that has always in history led to problems. But if everybody's doing it, then all currencies get debased, destroyed. They all go down together. And I guess that's more, means we just need to buy more gold and silver, because I cannot see, other than agriculture. I mean, this has never happened. As I said, it's a nutty theory. It's an absurd theory. But if everybody adopts it and everybody does what the English are doing, then there's going to be a huge amount of money printing. All currencies are going to go down together, and something's going to have to, you can find something that will stay up. Agriculture, gold, silver, farmland, some things.
Yeah. Yeah, and as you mentioned, it punishes everyone, because there's a lot of people looking at the sort of their golden years, right? The retirement, they've saved, they've worked, they've put money away, they've done all the right things, and right at the end, this is happening. They get punished. The children get punished. The guys and gals in the middle, like me, we get absolutely punished. So it's just quite incredible to see that there's really no end to this, which leads to people rushing into a lot of other harder assets. Gold and silver obviously being one of them. Real estate has always been a hard asset that people like to own. What are some of your views? I know the world is full of real estate. Every real estate market is different. Markets are different within countries and submarkets and so forth. But if you look at real estate as an asset class still today, what are some of your views on that?
Well, you said the first of all, the good insight is there's a lot of different real estate in the world. You pick the United States.
Yep.
I mean, the difference in New York City financial real estate and Iowa farmland is dramatic. You know, it's night and day. So yes, real estate can be a way to survive. At the moment, if you ask me, real estate is going to continue to get decimated because, first of all, interest rates are going to go higher someday, which is usually not good for real estate. But secondly, offices, commercial real estate, shopping centers, a lot of kinds of real estate, we're going through dramatic changes right now. Even housing is going through changes. So if you want to buy property, MC, head west. There's a lot of farmland in Iowa. There's a lot of land in Nebraska. That's cheaper, and those guys are going to come out ahead if you ask me. But you could go to Canada, Australia, many places where you can go and buy property. I wouldn't buy property in Sydney. I might buy it in the outback in Australia.
Yeah, absolutely. One of the thoughts that I just had too, and just from a philosophical standpoint too, I love the books that you read, and you were on a bike going through the old communist countries back in those days, and you saw things on the ground. You know, you mentioned Marx that had this idea, right? And you were in the Soviet Union. I mean, I felt I was there with you guys on the bike, driving through it, seeing the countryside. Not many people did that back then too, and got entrance into those countries. So you had a ringside seat, if you will, to what was going on. And it was always touted as one of the most precise planned economies, which was a disaster eventually. What are some of your thoughts of just some of the things that you're seeing now out in the public domain being talked about quite a bit? The individual and corporate welfare is a big one. Universal basic income, more planned economies, more money printing. What are some of your thoughts? Does this remind you of a lot of what you saw on the ground when you were traveling these countries years ago?
MC, we all want a free lunch. What's wrong with you? What is wrong with you? You think people need to work and earn their own cash flow? No. Find a way to get a free lunch. Tell your politicians, send me a check. I need money. This was certainly what was happened in the Soviet Union and other places. Fortunately, we tried that. Many places tried it, and it never worked. Never, ever. There's no country where communism, socialism. I mean, nobody wants to be a communist anymore. They don't even want to be a few people, but if they want to be socialists, they want to be rich socialists. Nobody wants to be a poor socialist anymore. So everybody's learned that didn't work. But we still want a free lunch. Oh my gosh, we all want a free lunch. So that's why this theory of more money today, MMT, may not get credence, but it may get acceptance. And people may try it for a while. Because, MC, there's nothing like the idea of a free lunch.
Right.
Oh my gosh, what a wonderful, wonderful idea. Yeah, I've seen it all over the world, but I also saw in my travels around the world, going close to the ground, everybody came to realize, oh, wait a minute, that didn't work. I used to say to people in the Soviet Union and other places, can you tell me a single place where this has worked? And they were always a little befuddled, but everybody was coming to that realization anyway. By then, after the Berlin Wall fell, everybody realized, hey, this didn't work. But I don't think anybody now would say that communism works. Some will still advocate socialism because it's a wonderful idea. Oh, my God, a free lunch. I want one, too. But it just means that everybody's standard of living continues to decline. We all suffer together. That's not my idea of a good time. I'd rather try not to suffer.
Absolutely. What was the joke that they had? We pretended to work and they pretended to pay us, right? Or something to that effect.
Absolutely. I can remember seeing somebody, I think it was in Czechoslovakia somewhere, and that guy said, oh yeah, we make buckets. But some of the buckets have holes in them. But it doesn't matter, because that's the only bucket you can get. You've got to take our buckets or you don't get a bucket, even if our buckets have holes in them. What a life.
Yeah, it amazes me that in those countries too, that there was a lot of pressure, obviously, and this was happening, that the black market at that stage was just thriving, and you were that's where you would figure out the true price of the currency, right? When you went to actually go into the black market and see what was going on there.
Well, absolutely. The one thing about the black market, it's those are honest people. Now, governments say they're criminals, but the government is the ones who are the criminals. The government's giving you this money and says, oh, this is what it's worth. And everybody says, that's not what it's worth. We know that's a lie. And so the black market starts because things develop the real value. And it doesn't matter what you're talking about. It can be money, cigarettes, anything.
Yeah.
When the government lies to you and says this is the value of something, people know it's wrong. And all of us peasants, MC, figure out another way to do things.
Absolutely. What does the new economy and the new world look like when we get out of this? Because there's a lot of fear. There's these germs that are around that are invisible. They've been around forever, but there's going to be a lot of fear. So people are going to work differently. I mean, there's a lot of people in the medical profession that are seeing patients now through Skype and through Zoom, and a lot of people have figured out a way to keep their businesses going and to keep their companies going. How do you see the new world when this all restarts again after this reset that we're having?
Well, things like medical care over the internet or consultations were always there, but now because of this, people are being forced to try it. And obviously it works. So the development is accelerating. But we're not going to have heart surgery over Zoom, but we can certainly see our doctor. We can say, oh, see this eye here? And he can look at it and he can see what's going on. So this is changing. Education, my kids are both having school over the internet now. Many things, home delivery. We could have been doing home delivery for 10 years, but now it's accelerating. getting food delivered at home and other things delivered at home. That's one of the problems for real estate, as we said before. There's not so much need for all these shopping centers and department stores, et cetera, anymore. So all of this is changing. It's accelerating changes which were already underway. And yes, but one of the great things about the world is it's always changing. MC, everything we thought in any year is wrong 15 years later. Go back in history. Look at 1900. Everything we knew was true in 1900 was totally wrong in 1915. Any year. Pick any year.
Yeah.
It's one of the great things. And if you can figure it out, well, one way to figure it out is to listen to Ninja. Listen to MC. But you need to figure it out, and then you'll succeed and survive.
Yeah, it's so true. When you were saying that, I'm just thinking, doctors used to recommend smoking, right? Not so long ago. So, I mean, you could pick all of these different things that we would just now shake our heads. But at the time, it seemed fine. The future of financial markets and Wall Street, you were there for a long while, that you had an amazing journey there. What does that look like? I mean, especially right now. I mean, is there more? Is there more room to go down? I guess is what I'm trying to ask. And then maybe tie into that: is Wall Street going to eventually open up to other opportunities? I know you're not a big fan of crypto. And in the past, when you're not a big fan of Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies and all these different things, but does that play a role with Wall Street in the future?
Well, one thing slightly different from what you ask is, as you probably know, the trading floors have disappeared nearly everywhere in the world.
Yeah.
Once upon a time, we all gathered on the floor of the New York Stock Exchange. Well, most stock exchanges have disappeared. The New York Stock Exchange is mainly for TV shows now. Everything is done over the computer. So that is going to continue to change. Everything will be done electronically going forward. Some industries are going to do well and some are going to do badly. People will learn to buy and sell investments. That's not ever going to change. That's happened forever. Even under the communists, they had black markets so people could buy and sell things one way or the other. I mean, packages of cigarettes were very valuable on the black market.
Yep.
under the communists, tomatoes, braziers, everything, anything you had, there was a market for it if you could get it and buy and sell it some way or the other. And that's going to continue. And there will be technological changes. You asked specifically about Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies. Yes, many of them have already disappeared, as you know.
Yep.
These are wonderful ideas. The problem, if you ask me, once upon a time, 800 years ago, we could use seashells or sugar cubes or anything we wanted for money. Banks could print their own money, legally could print their own money 100 years ago. But then the Bank of England, which was the most important bank in the world, said from now on, it's an act of treason to use anything for money except our money. Well, MC, treason means they execute you. So people stopped using seashells and other things, and they used Bank of England money. That will happen again. All the crypto guys say, look, we're smarter than the government. And they are. Of course they are. But the government has the guns. I don't like this. I don't like it. Governments love it. Money is expensive for governments. They have to print it, account for it, transport it, etc. It's very expensive. They would love. And money in Asia is already, you go to China, you can't take a taxi with money. You have to use your phone. You can't buy ice cream with money in China. It's already on the computer. And that's happening in some parts of the world. Many parts of the world are ahead of the U.S. now. But it's coming. It's coming to the U.S. Governments love it. Saves them money, but more important, MC, they know everything you do. If they can call you up one day and say, MC, you have been drinking too much coffee this month. Well, you've got to cut back on your coffee or everything else. You've been to the disco too many times this month. No, they'll know everything. And they love that. Do I love it? Of course, I hate it. I would love But unfortunately, as I said, the governments have the guns, and if the governments say you cannot use money on other people's money on the computer, you're probably going to stop. It will be on the computer, but it's going to be government money. It's already happening in China, as I said. It's already on the computer, but it's their money. It's not other people's money.
Yep. So that it will go digital, but it'll just be digital currencies or money of countries. I already see all the wallets on the phones, as you mentioned, and you see a lot of footage in Asia already where nobody's carrying any money. I think you shared the story previously with me of trying to buy an ice cream cone too, and struggling to get it, right?
The lady gave me the ice cream because I had money. I had Chinese money. She couldn't take it. She didn't know what to do with it. So she gave me the ice cream in the end.
Yeah, no, absolutely. One of the big lessons that I learned, and I love this phrase that you've shared, because I think we've got a lot of folks listening to us that, a lot of folks that have been listening to us have prepared for a downturn or a recession or some tougher times, and they were looking to capitalize on opportunities, whether it's buying businesses, whether it's buying commodities, whether it's getting into buying shares in certain companies.
Life settlement investments have allowed financial and banking institutions to not only buy their equity contractually, but also diversify their capital from any economic, market, and geopolitical risk. It's been part of the billion-dollar blueprint followed by institutional investors. And if you're an accredited investor, you can also now participate in this vehicle with enormous growth potential. You can watch an informational webinar presented by one of the premier organizations providing life settlement investments, Penumbra Solutions, at cashflowninja.com/life settlements.
So a lot of folks, again, go on, what should I do? What should I buy? And again, to your first advice that you gave, don't listen to anyone on the internet or podcast. Figure this out for yourself. But one of the pieces of advice that you shared, and maybe you can expand a little bit on that philosophy, and I love this, is when you said if you only had to make 20 investments in your life, how would you go about making those? Because I feel like the emotions take over in so many of us, and then they run wild with our mind. It's this little, this emotional part of our brain, and we don't focus as much. But if we approach it from, I'm going to make 20 investments in my life, and is this going to be one of them? You're definitely going to think about it in a completely different way.
Well, of course, but we all want a hot tip. What's wrong with you, MC? Everybody wants a free lunch and everybody wants a hot tip. Well, you need to watch the Ninja Show more often. I assure you. No, everybody wants a hot tip. Everybody wants to get rich this week. Next year? No. We want to be rich today. We want to be rich this month, for goodness sake. Therein lies the problem. Everybody wants a quick hot tip. It doesn't work that way. If you rely on hot tips, I assure you, you're going to go to the poorhouse. You're never going to make it in the investment business. And that's why I use that expression. If I told you can only have 20 investments in your life, you would be very careful. And you wouldn't jump in and out and up and down and blah, blah. So that's the most important lesson for you. If you want to be a successful investor, wait until you yourself know that something is going to work. I say to people, wait until you see money over there in that corner. You see there's money sitting over there on the floor. All you got to do is go over there and pick it up. When you see that kind of opportunity, that's when you should invest. Otherwise, sit and do nothing. Look out the window. Go to the beach. Go to the disco. Do anything. But don't be jumping in and out looking for hot tips.
Yeah. Absolutely, I love it. And doing nothing is also doing something. So your traveling has been put on hold a little bit this year, and I know you like to travel and make your way around and look at markets and feel the energy of places and talk to people. What are some of the things in store for the rest of 2020 for you, and what you're excited about?
Well, who knows? I mean, the airports closed in Singapore are essentially closed now. I hope that the world retains its sanity eventually. As I said before, and when America had its big epidemic in 2009, Delta didn't stop flying. Airports didn't close, McDonald's didn't close, et cetera, et cetera. This has happened before. The reaction is different this time because of the press, as best I can determine. I don't know when things open up again. I'm very keen to see what's happening in Korea. Looks like something dramatic may be happening in Korea. I'm very optimistic about the future of Korea anyway. The peninsula, the whole thing, not north or south. I bought some Russian shares this week. I bought a couple of Chinese shares. I'm very, very keen to get to China. There are 3 companies I want to go see where I want to buy. So there are. I hope there are opportunities developing out there. Who knows? We'll see.
Yeah. It's interesting news what's happening. You mentioned Korea, the peninsula, just not just south or north, but now obviously with it looks like the political seas changing with the leadership in North Korea. Do you foresee anything changing with the successor, which I believe could be Kim Jong-un's sister? Do you see anything changing, or are they going eventually moving, or are they moving into a direction where they're going to open up at some stage?
See, it was already changing. The kid is not North Korean. The kid grew up in Switzerland. Okay. The kid doesn't want to live in North. Would you rather live in North Korea or Switzerland? Well, I assure you, everybody has the same answer, but the kid can't leave. Yeah. So he stopped. He was trying to open it. He was opening 15 free trade zones, international ski resort, international marathon, all sorts of things changing dramatically. I don't know what's happened to the kid now. If he dies. I didn't do it, but somebody might have. But usually when you have a change of a strong man like this, there's internal turmoil for a while because everybody wants to grab it, including his sister, including his aunt, including everybody. So I don't know how it may turn out to be turmoil. But the end result is going to be that border the 38th parallel is going to open sooner rather than later. And that will mean that the Korean peninsula, whether there's a unification or not, doesn't matter. Just so the border is open, then you get a free movement of labor, capital, etc. Then it's going to be very exciting. There's lots of disciplined, educated, cheap labor in the north with lots of natural resources, big manufacturing capability in the south, lots of capital in the south, right on the Chinese border. 80 million people on the Chinese border. It's going to be a very exciting place.
Yeah, and especially if they just get a little taste. As you mentioned, they open it up with some free trade zones. You get a little bit of taste of that, and people start seeing different things. They start thinking a little bit differently, and it's a snowball effect.
They already have, I assure you. I've been to North Korea twice. It's illegal for Americans to go now. But I went twice, and they already knew. They'd all seen DVDs or what's going on. The Chinese can go there. The Chinese are telling them. They can see how the Chinese dress, etc. The Russians, they can see what's going on. No, it's too late. You cannot lie to them anymore. Even though you want. The kid didn't want to lie anyway. He was trying to change. He's trying to change. There's pizza parlors. There are restaurants with tablecloths now. All these things are happening anyway. And if he drops dead or something, it's just going to accelerate it.
So the comparisons between North Korea of what you saw and back in the Soviet Union, was it sort of, besides of course maybe some slight technology upgrades since you were there, is that kind of similar? Was there a lot of poverty? Because I don't think a lot, like you said, it was illegal to go there. So what did it look like? You said there's a lot of natural resources. What did it look like on the ground for the average person?
Well, as recently as 1970, North Korea was richer than South Korea because it has a lot of natural resources. Communism can ruin anything, and the Kims and communism combined ruined North Korea, no question. When I was there the first time, people, you know what a scythe is? They were cutting grass with a scythe. It's like a knife. It's a scythe.
Okay.
A sickle, a hammer and sickle. They were cutting grass with a sickle, with a scythe. The second time I went, but the second time I went, because the kid was in charge, there were already markets opening up, markets for anything and everything. I went to a market with thousands of people. Had electronics that I didn't even know what they were. Yeah, they were so advanced. Had alcohol from all over the world. Had anything. You forget America. Forget all propaganda. You should always forget all propaganda. Yeah. It was all there, you know. So it was happening. It is happening. They know. When the generals were captains and majors, they could only go to Beijing or Moscow. Couldn't, obviously, no place. Now they go to Beijing and Moscow, and they come back and they say, "Oh my God, you know what's happened in Beijing? How it's boomed and blossomed?" And then they look around and say, "Nothing's happened here." So everybody knows now, including the generals. They all want to change, and the kid was changing it. I hope it continues. It will continue, whether we like it or not. The only people who are against it are the Japanese, because they cannot compete with an open Korea, and they know it, and the American Army. The American Army does not want to leave because it's the only place that we can have troops on the Chinese and Russian border. But, I mean, Trump so far listens to the American Army, but that's going to change because the Chinese, the South Koreans, the North Koreans, the Russians are all in favor of this changing. The Koreans spend huge amounts of money on defense, North and South. They're going to have a lot of money to spend on other things now. What we should do, MC, is go there and build a disco in the North.
That's right.
We should build a chain of discos. Because they're not going to spend money on shooting each other. They're going to spend money on singing and dancing.
Yep. Exactly. Once they figure that out, it's a snowball from there. So this has been a blast. Thank you so much again. I really, really appreciate the time that we spent together and the conversations that we've had over the years, and always appreciate your insights. Mr. Rogers, where can listeners learn more about you? Where can they follow you? Where can they stay informed of all of the things that you're involved with?
MC, I don't have anything. I guess my books, you can buy my books. My books on my website is jimrogers.com, but you can go to Amazon. Well, some of my books are only in Chinese or Russian or Japanese or Chinese, but most of, well, if you read Japanese, you can buy my Japanese books or Korean books or Russian books, Chinese books, or go to Amazon, go to my website. But I don't have anything to sell.
Yep.
You know, I don't have a job, MC. So, you know.
Absolutely.
Anyway,
and this
fun.
is a great
Thank
time
you.
to grab those books on Kindle, on Amazon if you can. Thank you so much again.
My pleasure, MC. Let's do it again. Bye-bye.
Absolutely. Bye-bye.
This presentation is for educational and informational purposes only. The information being presented and considered does not consider your particular financial objectives or situation, and it does not make personalized recommendations. This material is not intended to replace the advice of a qualified tax and legal advisor or other qualified professionals, and you should not use the information in place of a customized consultation with a licensed professional regarding your specific personal financial objectives, situation, and needs. We believe the information provided is reliable, but we do not guarantee its accuracy, timeliness,